Hello, everyone, and welcome to this training. My name is Stephanie. I am your host and founder here at Mrs. D's Corner and the Intentional IEP. And I'm so excited to be here with Trevor today because we're talking about highly effective strategies for communicating all IEP things with the rest of the team. So, the IEP goals, the accommodations, the behavior plans, just all of it. Before we dive in, though, Trevor, will you please introduce yourself, share about you, your role in education, and your role at the IEP table?
Mrs. D, I have the best job in the whole world. I am a preschool teacher. I love teaching preschool. I'm an early child special education teacher. I get the opportunity every single day to work in my inclusive environment, to support children, help them succeed. I also love to go out and do trainings as a speaker, keynote speaker. And it is one of the best joys I have to take the passion I have for teaching and then share it to all of you, whether it be parents or teachers or people who are just wondering more about special education. So this is really exciting.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here today, Trevor. We did do a training that's inside of our intentional IEP membership about parent advocacy. We talked about developmental delay and all of those things. So I will link our membership below here if you're interested and want to check that out. But today we're talking about highly effective strategies for just communicating things within the IEP as the special education teacher, caseload manager, how we can communicate all of this out with the rest of the IEP team. So let's first talk about why it's essential for all team members on an IEP team, so teachers, specialists, support staff, parents, admin, for everyone to clearly understand what a student's goals are, what their accommodations are, what their behavior plan is, like all of the pieces of an IEP. Why is it so important for everyone on the team to know what's in that child's IEP?
Okay, great question. But here's how I want you to think about that question.
Yeah.
I want you to think about it not from the adult perspective, but from the child's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So that child walks in the door, they're greeted, they feel loved, they know the routine, they know where everything goes, and then they go through their day, right? And they know they're going to be loved and supported. They know they're going to have their needs met, right? And then they leave, right? And so I know that felt like a really smooth, short arc, but that's how it should feel for a child. They walk into a setting and it's just there.
Yeah.
Everything's ready. Their life feels good. And then they learn through that entire process, all their
Mm-hmm.
needs are being met. And then they leave for the day. They look around. It's like there's no drops in the day. There's no
Mm-hmm.
spikes of dysregulation. There's no times where their needs aren't being met and they're left to dysregulate. That doesn't happen in their environment if everyone within their environment is playing this little game of bumper pool,
Yeah.
right? And ensuring that every teacher, every person, every stakeholder is in the right place at the right time with the right accommodations and right supports to help that child just have a seamless, beautiful, wonderful, happy day. So that is the analogy I want us to think about. So then it's really critical for your staff to know what is their role in that child's day. When are they going to interact? How are they going to interact? What are they going to support with? And I think it's even more critical for the team members who are one step off the core team, right? These are your interventionists, your speech language pathologist, your occupational therapist, maybe your music therapist, someone who is going to come in who is not with them the entire day to ensure that they support and not dysregulate the child. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I
I
think
think,
that perspective shift is so important because we're here. The child, well, I have an actual picture back here with my IEP letters. You can't see it because there's a glare, but it says, I am the I in IEP.
oh, nice.
And you put that with the child's picture on the table at the IEP meetings because they're the reason that we're there. So I
Yep.
think I love that perspective, just thinking like we're not just writing a paper, we're not just making this document just because, like, we're making it for a student, for a purpose. It's not just paperwork to have paperwork. And so I think if we think about just the whole IEP process in itself and implementation of how would it feel for the student to be in my classroom with
Yep.
these changes the game.
It really does. Because it allows us to be more gentle
Mm-hmm.
and more intentional about how we interact with a child to ensure that our strategies, our interventions are not going to be disruptive to the child's overall day or their overall goal. Because there's some days where you need to push a little harder, and there's some days where you need to back off, right? And know that we can go slow to go fast and we'll get it all caught up, right? We'll get our hours in. I don't want to suggest that we're not going to get our hours in. What I
Right.
really mean is the intensity of what is happening sometimes needs to be shifted and adjusted.
Right.
And often that's based off what what the child is bringing emotionally to the day,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think it's absolutely critical that when those interventionists walk in, they have even 5 seconds sometimes is all they need of here's the day right now, here's how it's going, great luck, you can do this, what do you need from me, right? Just that
Yeah.
5 seconds. So they walk in, they recalibrate, okay, go, right? And I think often in IEPs there's a section on the service plan of indirect time,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll put like 15 minutes a week or 30 minutes a week, and sometimes that time is kind of overlooked. You're like, what are we even going to do with that? But
Yeah.
I would advocate strongly to use those minutes, because if you can have intentional conversations while the child is not there, everything's calm, and you have a very rational mind, then you can fill them in on the background and the story and the needs of the child in a really in-depth level. So that way, when the parent or that when the interventionist comes in, you can just give them one or two words and they know what the plan is. You're not
Yeah.
filling them in from ground zero every single day.
Right. Well, and I think it's important to note that that's just human nature. Like, it's not just our kids with IEPs that are going to come in with different emotions every single day. Like, as teachers, we come into school every single day with different emotions based off of how our morning went. If our toddler had a tantrum this morning before we
Yep.
dropped them off at daycare, um, how our night went, how we slept. Did we get our coffee this morning? Or, other outside things like health and wellness, like our family. Like, there's so many factors, and it affects everybody. Everybody comes to the table with these every single day. It's just human nature. And so I
Yep.
think I just wanted to note that it's really important to remember that this isn't just a disabled population thing. Like, this is an everybody thing. But we have to be cognizant of this, because when we notice these things with our students, we can adjust our interventions a little bit. When they go see the specialist, we can say, hey, or even parents can let us know. I used to get text messages in the morning or emails. Hey, Stephanie didn't sleep that well last night, just an FYI. Like, before
Yep.
they even got off the bus, I knew Stephanie didn't sleep well. So we need to be a little gentler this morning, or we need to give directions in this manner instead of this manner this morning. And so we can do those things as teachers too for the rest of the specialists on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a huge advocate for a 2-minute stand-up meeting every single day with
Hmm.
my staff.
Okay.
And so here's what that looks like. I'm fortunate. I'm in a situation where I'm the lead teacher and I have two classroom assistants. And there's a lot of different names: paraprofessionals, educational assistants, parapro,
Hmm.
whatever the word you use. But there's a lot of situations where there's 3 members on the team, 4 members, 2 members on the team. Sometimes you're in the room by yourself.
Yeah.
Either whatever that makeup is, I think it's really critical to take at least 2 minutes with either just yourself or your other person or everyone on your team. Stop, stand, look at each other, and just get a feel for each other.
Yeah.
Just breathe, right? Welcome to the day. I'm so happy you're here. Yesterday, we absolutely rocked it with Johnny. I love the
Hmm.
way that intervention went in. Here's how we're going to shift it just slightly today. I got a text message, email last night that said that this person, Samantha, Miss Stephanie, did not sleep well, so let's be ready for that. When our interventionists come in, I need you to tell her that Stephanie didn't sleep well. And then, do you have any questions? How are you doing today?
Yeah.
Man, my boyfriend, we had a rough one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or my significant other. I mean, we're going through it right now, whatever it might be. So we can read everyone in the situation who's going to be with these children, and then that gives us the flexibility to pull strings and push things and pull things and make adjustments, even with our own staff. So if I know this, and I know that staff member A had a really rough night for whatever it might be, or is coming with with not 100%, maybe even
Hmm.
just illness. And then I have a child who normally meets with that child or with that person come in and they had a rough time.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put them together,
Right.
right? I'm gonna shift that. I'm gonna make that adjustments because I do know that at the end of the day, it is about the needs of the child, but we also have to take into account the needs of the staff and the abilities and the emotional ability to co-regulate and regulate their own emotions. So take those 2 minutes, co-regulate, breathe, come up with a quick plan, and then move forward on the day. So I'm a big advocate for that.
I love that. Well, that kind of answers my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because maybe you have another strategy or we can talk about something else in addition to that. What common barriers exist then when communicating these different IEP components throughout whatever part of the process that it is? And how can we proactively address these with our team? So you do your 2 minute co-regulation. That helps with implementation of the IEPs and the
Yep.
service minutes and all of that. So what other common barriers exist in the IEP realms when it comes to providing service minutes or implementation and or writing a new IEP, and how can we address them with our team?
Absolutely love that question. And so the 2 minute meeting really is the tip of the spear. So 99% of everything else is already done. This is the last 1% final shift for the day. And then you
Oh, I
go,
like
let's
it.
go attack this day. Boom.
Hmm.
I think that one of the biggest barriers is language and knowledge,
Hmm.
right? So I I am so smart, Miss Stephanie, because I went to school, right? I'm being facetious
Facetious. Yep.
when I say that. Like I have the knowledge and the experience, 15 years and getting all the degrees and whatnot. I have the strategies, but I need to ensure that the people who are working with those children have the same strategies. So my ability to train my staff or the people that are going to be working with those children and the best practices is absolutely a barrier. So I have to be a teacher to my staff. And so I do that personally through individual meetings, which we have about once every 3 weeks, and also team meetings, which we have every couple of weeks, um, or even a short one during our plan or prep time, but a really formal one every couple of weeks. And in these, a lot of the meeting time is about teaching and training and new strategies to ensure these people who are coming in, whether they're 18 years old, 21 years old, 67 years old, whatever their ability is, I need to ensure that they have the strategy and the tool that is going to be most successful with this child. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Yep. And so then with that 2 minute meeting, it's a reminder and a prompt to try that. Right.
Hmm.
And then in the moment with our staff, where let's say we're at a center time and we're flowing and things are going well. And this is the opportunity for me as a teacher not to feel like I have to do it all. I want to be able to trust my staff, and I
Hmm.
can do that if I've provided them the proper training. And I'm not talking 7 or 8 hours, I'm talking sometimes 20 minutes is
Oh,
enough,
yeah. Or
right?
modeling. Like,
Yeah. And
yeah.
so then in the moment, I'm going to bring them over and say, watch me model this skill. Here we go. You go, right? And over
Hmm.
the next couple of days, we're going to practice that skill until they become really proficient at it.
Yeah.
And then the next week or week after that, I say, hey, go try that right over there. You got this.
Yep.
Boom. They're in on it. And now we're upping the knowledge level of the entire team. And so that child feels supported by everyone, and everyone is just so proficient in what they do. So then I also said language, because sometimes, just like with parents, you get in the habit of using jargon
Hmm.
and you're just like, I'm just spitting out IEP and IFSB and all this stuff and
Yep.
RTI and MTSS and all this stuff and throwing words out there. And they're like, not sure what you're talking about there. Right.
Yeah.
So make sure we break that words down and the language down in a ways that is accessible. And there's a common knowledge, a common language across the entire team.
Yes, I've linked below this training in the description. We have some blog post link for you about special education jargon, special education acronyms. There's a free download in there. It's an acronym brochure, and so you can download that. It's free in that blog post. And then I added a blog post to talk about parent or para, not parent, para trainings, and then team building activities for paras and teachers as well. And I love that you were talking about, everybody has I call it their zone of genius, right?
Hmm.
My zone of genius is not technology. Please do not come for me and ask me to help hook up your computer. Please do not ask me to get your printer to print something. Like that is not my zone of genius. I'm not good at it.
Yep.
Now, if you need help with I had this math lesson and I need it broken down into support and differentiate. Like, I am your girl. I have an IEP goal. How do I implement this in my lessons plan? I've got you. Like, there are things that I am really, really good at. Those are my zones of genius. You want to implement that with your paras as well. They're all
Yep.
going to have a different zone of genius. I had one paraprofessional who she was so creative. She loved doing bulletin boards, loved it. We would take a lesson, turn it into a bulletin board. And I hate bulletin boards. I hate putting them up. They are not my favorite
Same.
thing. I'm going to do once and done. You're going to have it for the entire year and it's going to look good, but that's going to be it. She would change them out every month, every couple of weeks. She would do our door decor outside. Like it was beautiful. I could never do it. But the kids were involved with it. We would have them do activities and lessons that would go on the door, go on the bull, and that was her zone of genius. And so
Yep.
I gave that, I was like, it's yours, whatever you want to do with it. And so she's like, we need to do this within some lesson. We need to make this. And so she would give me, here's this craft that we need the kids to do, fit it into the lesson plan somehow. She said it much nicer than that, and that we had a really good
Yeah.
relationship. But I would then fit it into the lesson plan so it got done, so it could go onto the bulletin board. And so that's just an example of finding what each of your paraprofessionals or team members' zones of genius is, where they thrive, what they do really, really well with, and giving them that place and that the energy and just the space to thrive in that area. And then you can thrive in your area. And then together, you're all thriving together. And that's when the student's going to succeed. And so that's not
Absolutely.
just in your classroom, but as an IEP team as well.
No, Stephanie, I think that's absolutely great about the zone of genius. I love that phrase. And really what we're doing is there's a lot of pride that
Yeah.
happens there, right? Because they
Hmm.
feel so good about being able to do that thing. And they're going to have areas that they're really strong at and areas that they struggle. And just like with children, if our only point of like touch is you're not good at this, you need to get
Hmm.
better at this, keep going at this, you're not there yet, then the pride and their self-esteem drops a lot. So
Yeah.
if we can identify zone of genius, it's going to help them feel really great, but also it's going to support the entire team. Because
Yeah.
really what it is, it's a relationship.
Yep.
And that's really what we highlighted on is like, I hope that your zone of genius supports my zone of, nah, I really don't want to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we can work that together. And I think that also speaks to whoever the lead is or the director or the teacher, whoever's in charge of that space, being able to feel confident knowing that I trust my staff, I'm giving
Hmm.
them trust. I know you can do this, whether they've been trained, they know the expectations. And from there, you're letting them be an individual. If you
Hmm.
can do that, then your whole team is really going to become really cohesive and strong and be able to be really supportive of each other. And you don't have to have this feeling of micromanaging.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like micromanaging at all. I don't like being micromanaged. So definitely give the zone of genius thing a try. It definitely helps. I love the 2 minute meeting. I think that that's fantastic. Just a daily check-in, like how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Which
That can be done in a lot of different ways. I
yeah,
know I mean, in a perfect world, everyone who's involved is standing right there. But if that's not the case, because you have rolling starts or full
yeah,
days or whatever it might be, there's different ways. It could be a secure text message line, secure brief email line. It could be a check-in board. Just something. Maybe you need to have a system to ensure you're communicating at
yeah.
least briefly every single day.
I love that. And that builds on your zone of genius. Well, let's talk about now these strategies for communicating. So we're going to cover just a couple different strategies for communicating, let's say IEP goals. What are your favorite strategies? Let's say we have a new IEP, brand new IEP, new IEP goals. How are we getting this info? Obviously, we know in our back pocket, in the back of our mind, every person on the IEP team that works with a child has to have a copy of the IEP. Okay. Based, like we all know that we're all on the same page. But how are we communicating IEP goals?
Perfect. Absolutely. And so really we're talking about to that person, that level who maybe they weren't at the IEP meeting,
Yep.
right? And
Okay.
so classroom assistants, classroom aides, whatever that might be. That's kind of what I'm thinking of here.
Okay.
I think it's really important to state that there are some pieces you need to keep confidential,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's more family specific needs. Let's say there's something that came up within the IEP meeting or conversations that led up to the meeting about a home life or
Mm-hmm.
spousal situation or something protective. There are some things that need to just be close to the chest and only shared with the family for the confidentiality pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really critical. From there, I think it's really valuable to share with them or share with your team the section 10, which is the accommodations, section 13. Yeah, section 13, which is the service delivery statement, right? How, like, what the hours are going to look like. And I also think it's really critical to share with them at least parts of section 6 of the present levels, because we start there. Get your team one of these meetings that are not 2 minute meeting. It's a formal sit down, at least 20 minutes, have a nice conversation where we're just talking about this child, and we're going to start with the present levels. I absolutely missed the goal section. Have to have the goals in there. What am I doing here? Right? Sorry, put that in there as well. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want to have that document, not the whole piece, but just the highlighted portions of it. And we're
Mm-hmm.
going to start with who the child is, section 6, strength and preferences, an update of what their goals are. I want to then go around a table and I want to have a conversation what each person's perception of that child is, what they love about them, what they how they care about them, what they love doing with that child, right? So now we're bringing the kid first language here because we really want them to be the center point of this. Then from there it's like, okay, so moving forward, here are the goals, and we're going to talk about whether it's 2, 3, 4 goals, however many it might be, and we're going to train ourselves to ensure we know what the goal is. We know what strategies we can use to achieve the goal. Then from there, we're going to say, okay, here is a service delivery statement. Here's the time that we have to achieve this goal with this child. And I'm a huge fan of having a grid of laid out for all my children with IEP goals and service times to ensure that this time on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, I know that I am supposed to be with that child or a staff member is supposed to be with that child to meet that goal, right? And to ensure that that's direct time for there. Then from there, once we know the time frame of things, we're going to say, and these are the accommodations that we're going to use to support above and beyond what we normally do. From there, it becomes an open conversation, training, and then continued modeling throughout the coming weeks until we all feel super competent taking data. And then we're taking the data on it and we check in back each other every 2 or 3 weeks and say, here's the data points from the last couple of weeks. Um, why has it grown so much? Why has it plateaued? Why did this dip here? And how do we need to adjust our accommodations or adjust our strategies or our time with this child? And so a lot of it also goes back to thinking about ABC data. That might be too much jargon right there.
Ooh, no. Well, let's define it. What is ABC data? I know what it is, but let's define it. What is ABC data?
Okay, so this is a applied behavior analysis ABA term, usually reserved for autism-based intervention. However, good teaching is good teaching. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so ABC, it stands for antecedent is the A. Antecedent is something that happened before something, right?
Yep.
B is behavior, and then C is consequence. So A, B, C. So if you targeted behavior, let's say you had a child had a moment where they exhibited challenging behavior. Okay. And so you look at that behavior, then the A comes first. What happened leading up to that moment? That's the antecedent strategy, or antecedent rather. And then after the behavior, what did that child receive? What was the consequences? What happened there? And so then you look at making adjustments there, saying, Okay, what can we do prior? What can we do? What can we do to prevent that behavior from even occurring? And that is an antecedent strategy. Okay. Maybe it's we're going to make sure this person meets you during this transition time, hand in hand, and we're walking here. That prevents elopement or running. And so then behavior never even shows up. But then we also need to look at what is the consequence, or what is the behavior they're trying to communicate. Do they just need more love? They need more attention? Are they looking for an input and output, whatever it might be? So we're looking at all those things together collectively, and then having a conversations about strategies. And I mean, this is the nitty gritty right here,
This
Mrs.
is
D.
so, I am linking all of the things below this training so that they have more information and can learn more about all of them. Because if we went in, it would be like an all-day training if we kept going and dove into more all of this. So, what you're going to find linked below this training are some resources, but also a lot of blog posts. So, we have a paraprofessional binder. I'm going to link that. And then we talked about present levels, IEP goals, accommodations, modifications, and service minutes. So, four things. There's a blog post on each of those linked below this. So, what's included if you want to share this information with your paraprofessionals, with the IEP team, you have that as well. There is a service minute log that is linked below here. Then we talked about ABC data. And so, I have ABC data sheets linked into the resources, but then there is also a blog post because that aligns with the antecedent behavior consequence. So there's a function to all behavior. What is the function of the behavior? There are four functions of behavior. So I'm going to link that. We're not going to dive into that today. We do have more trainings on functions of behaviors at the Intentional IEP in our membership. Again, I'll link membership below this if you want to check that out. But link the blog post for you. You can check it out. There's more information there for that. Well, let's reel this all back in
Yeah.
to now. Let's talk about how we can build. Okay, so we've shared the IEP with the team at school. And so now we want to share it with the home team, so the parents. We know that they have to receive a copy of the IEP, right?
Yep.
But honestly, and in my opinion, and I have a feeling that you're going to agree with me on this, that we need to do more than just handing off the IEP and saying, here's what we're going to implement. So, how can we build a strong communication system between home and school that keeps families informed and engaged in the IEP process and not just us handing off an IEP? Here's a progress report, here's the report card, here's the invitation to the next IEP meeting. Like, how do we keep that collaboration open, the communication open between home and school throughout the whole process?
Love it. And I think you're spot on. Communication is key. It really is, just like with your staff. Any good relationship, maybe with your spouse or your child, you have to communicate often, right? Because the last thing we want is a situation to happen where parents feel like they don't have all the information,
Right.
or then their assumptions start to be made, and we don't want that in any way, shape, or form. So, first and foremost, I want us to think about the kid's perspective again. Often, because they have a delay of some sort, whether one of the 13 disabilities, they can't always effectively communicate how their day went. So now, take that one step further to that parent, that child's parents' perspective. They're coming home like, "You're here. That's great. Did you have a good day?" And maybe you can tell through their nonverbals, but that's all they're getting. So I think at a minimum, we need daily 30 seconds. Just give them a quick update, even if it's so simple as the interests that they did, or something you did with them today, or something you saw them do that was really neat. Just have that daily communication. Then I think once a week you need to have that face to face again, and make it just a little bit longer. Maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And I want you to highlight at least one goal you're working on, or one intervention that came with you, or the interventions that came in, and maybe a follow up on a indirect time meeting from that interventionist. Hey, the SLP, they came in today and they said that their A's are really coming in, or their T's are really coming in. Really, really proud of the work they're doing there. Great job. Just make sure you are also the voice for your entire team. I think it's really important. I also in here want to ensure that there's one consistent person and who is communicating with the family, and not the entire team. I think that's I think it's really important, because sometimes stuff gets lost in the shuffle, or people without all the information say things they shouldn't have said. maybe we're developing a plan. And so I just think it's critical to have one person, and I think it should be the classroom teacher or the special education director to be that one person who's having that consistent communication. Then from there, I mean, let's get old fashioned with it. Let's get some folders in there. Let's get some take home folders. Let's get some, I mean, some text message communication through secure platforms, maybe Class Dojo, or the Remind. There's a lot of tools out there to constantly communicate with families,
Hmm.
and also what I want to say here is I think it's critical for teachers to be available all the time. I know people don't like hearing that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to continue that, finish that thought, because
Okay, hear me out.
I'm
Hear me
gonna
out.
be, I'm raising a red flag right now. So finish the thought.
Hear me out. Hear me out. Okay. I'm going to very specifically for a
Okay.
child or for a family of a child who has special needs,
Okay.
right? I think it's important to be available
Okay.
because we have to be available on their schedule because it's a family centered practice, right?
Okay.
There are moments when maybe that one spouse or a parent or they pick up from a child care provider at 7 o'clock at night
Mm-hmm.
and they notice something
Mm-hmm.
or an issue comes up and they want to communicate. I think it's important to be able to respond to them in a timely manner
Okay.
because I think personally, if you wait to respond to the next morning or if you wait to respond to that when you see them in person, now you have this little blow up that potentially could happen that could have been solved the night before.
Okay.
So maybe if you want to call it business hours, maybe it's training. If it happens of several times where it's 11 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
whatnot, and you have someone reaching out to you, then I think it's very appropriate to have a conversation with the family and say, hey, this is the best time to reach me,
Mm-hmm.
right? But have a little bit of flexibility in there because they're going to need a little parent training as well.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm not saying, hey, let's just stand by the phone and wait for parents to call and complain to us. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that. But
Okay.
what I am saying is an issue if an issue can be resolved the night before when things are calm, you're at home, they're at home, and something comes up, I'd rather solve it then than trying to solve it while I also have 16 other children in the classroom and a
Okay.
parent at the door. So that's just me, Mrs. D. That does not have to be your hot take. I, I try to be available.
I think it will ebb and flow, and I think it will be dependent upon, there's so many factors that are it could be dependent upon. So I agree with you in some instances, and then other instances I'm like, no, hard boundary, like here's my office
Yep.
hours. But I do agree with you. Let parents know what your office hours are and then stick to that. Um,
Yep.
Again, there may be like an extenuating circumstance where you need to respond right away. That's different. Um, but if you set office hours and then you are responding and you say my office hours end at 5 p.m. and you're responding to emails at 7 p.m., I don't want to say they're going to take advantage, but that sets the tone that they're okay to email you and expect a quick response for you at 7 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock. Um,
Okay, so here's the little pushback I have on that one.
yeah.
We have families
Hmm.
who don't communicate with their children for whatever reason or interact with them until well after your 5 o'clock office
Yeah.
hours. And so if something comes up, I think it's appropriate. And I do think it needs to be case by case,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
And if the situation becomes volatile whatsoever, meaning you feel like you're getting blown up on or blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, then you definitely need to bring your admin on, let
Hmm.
them know the situation is occurring. And then the next day, having a conversation just to bring in, hey, I understand you're upset, but this is what's appropriate for us. This is how we're going to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
So that relationship piece is super important. Overall, my theme is I'd rather handle a big issue when it's calm, case by case, than waiting to try to solve that issue and have the parent come worked up as they drop off their child. So that's just my thought there. But I 100% respect hard boundaries. I understand completely how there's separation from work and home. I think mental health is critical. I think we need at times have to take care of our own families. We have
Yeah.
to take care of our own health and our own peace. I get that, and this is your sanctuary. So I'm coming through with that as well, and so I can appreciate everything. So I know that might be my hottest take of the day so far.
Well, no, I'm super curious now for because this that we're on YouTube. So let's have that conversation in the comments. Teachers that have watched this far into the training, what are your boundaries for communication? Do you allow parents to have your cell phone number or your like? Do you put school email on your device so that you can check school email at home? I would love to know, just in general, like what the consensus is for what boundaries you have, but how you also then build that collaborative environment where we are helping parents almost in the moment if they need something at home that we can easily help them with. So leave a comment. Let us know below. Trevor and I would both love to know what your communication methods are, how you are engaging with families and what that looks like for you, because I think it's going to be different for everyone. But I would love to hear from you. So leave us a comment, let us know, and I'll come back and read them and respond because I'm very curious to see how everyone else manages it. Like, because
Yeah,
it's so different.
yeah, so before I get blown up in the comments, Mrs. D, so
Yeah.
I don't give out my cell phone number. That doesn't happen,
Yeah.
right? I'm very careful who joins me on social media, right? Although
Yeah.
they can find me because it's public, right?
Yeah.
I have office hours, really roughly, loosely 5 or 6, right?
Yeah.
If parents are going to communicate, they're going to use our preferred school platform, which is Class Dojo,
Okay.
and so that's how they're going to communicate with me. If in my personal opinion, if I get anything past 10 o'clock, I'm not responding
Yeah.
unless it feels like I roll over and I see that I'm like, oh my gosh, something just major just happened. And the parent looks like they emotionally need some help and it can't wait. But then I'm answering it the next morning before the doors open.
Hmm.
And then I'm having a touch base conversation with them when the doors open.
Yeah.
So anyways,
You
anyways,
do have hard boundaries, but our boundaries are different,
correct.
which is completely okay.
Yeah.
And I say that with everything, like with data collection, with IEP rating timelines, with lesson planning. You take in all the information so that you can then form the best plan for what works best for you.
Yep.
Because what's going to work best for you, honestly, this school year might not work for you next school year, or this marking period might not work next marking period. But what works for me might not work for my neighbor teacher, might work for my neighbor teacher on the other side, though. So I love
I
that we're
agree.
having this conversation because as a teacher, we have to learn all the time. Like we are
Yeah.
lifelong learners. That is just a given within education. And I think it's important to learn how other people do this and manage being a teacher and sustainably manage to be a teacher while still being effective and collaborative with the families and the other teachers and the students that we work with. So all in all, I do love that we had this conversation because other teachers then can now read the comments and share what other teachers have shared, how they do it. And they're like, oh, I should try that. Like that might work better for me than what I tried last year. Oh,
Yeah.
I really like what Trevor said. I'm going to try that this year because what I did last year, it was not for me. It did not work for Stephanie and her IEP team. So we need to try something different this year. So all of this to say, do what works best for you and your students and the families you service and your own family and your own mental health.
Yep.
That's going to look very different teacher to teacher. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I agree. And I have a one little nugget on mental health that I
Yeah.
think is really, really critical. And this is how I approach teaching and how I approach I gear my team to approach difficult situations,
Hmm.
right? Because that's really where a lot of stress comes from in those challenging moments. So I like to frame it as all the days are wonderful, but
Hmm.
there are moments that are challenging. And you have these little moments within the day. And if you can put them at a moment and then figure out what's going on there, what is their behavior, right?
Hmm.
How can we, as an antecedent strategy, how can we improve that behavior? Did the consequence change, right? Right. And now we're looking at that and we're attacking that little moment as a team and working really hard for that. And so then that challenging behavior becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it's not even an issue anymore. It's just something that is an accommodation we do every day for this child to support them. And it feels really good. So throughout the course of the entire school day, school year, we have challenging moments, but we can plan for them, we can work hard for them, and we can really have a growth mindset for that. So it doesn't feel like this cycle of insanity of just the same stuff happening over and over and over. And so that really helps me with my mental health, knowing that I'm creating a plan to help fix that and we're actively working towards it because I know and I believe it's going to get better.
Yes, I love that. Well, I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask at every single one of my trainings. That was a really good piece of advice. So I don't know how you're going to top that. But what is your best piece of advice for communicating effectively with other IEP team members? Well, let's frame that in the mind of communicating the IEP with other IEP team members.
Okay, so best piece of advice for doing that is think of it as a structure and think of it as a pyramid, if you will. So make sure that you have dedicated time, that you come to the meeting prepared, that you know the ins and outs of the IEP, so you feel like you are the child expert on that child, right? You've got it. And whether that you've used the IETB team to help you, whatever it might be. Then from there, with your team, your classroom assistants, your supports, whoever that might be, make sure you give them the necessary strategies without overbearing and out over communicating, right? Ensure that they have the most important pieces and that together, because you trust them and of their zone of excellence, right? Or zone of genius, as you say, you trust them, you can collaboratively come up with a plan to help that child. Then from there, tip of the iceberg is that 2 minute meeting or the equivalent every single day. Bring that back up constantly and continue to support, continue to encourage, continue to push to support that child. Because if you can support that child as a team, that child's life is going to improve. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing here, Mrs. D. We are taking this child, we're putting it in the center of our universe, and we're doing everything we can to close that gap so they can succeed and go live a socially appropriate and fulfilling life. That's what we're doing. That's the whole reason behind all these forms and IEPs and documents is for this child. And so come up with a plan, be solid with the plan, communicate the plan often, and just love every bit of doing it.
I love it. I think that's such great advice. Um, and I think back to like the whole sustainability and just I think that that's really powerful in terms of like being able to do this job for a really long time, wherever that
Yep.
looks like for you. So that was great advice. Well, thank you so, so much, Trevor, for being here and just sharing your knowledge and expertise and having this conversation about different ways to communicate the IEP, but really we talked mostly about like being an effective collaborative IEP team. And I
Hmm.
think that that's so valuable no matter what seat at the IEP table you take. So thank you so much for being here to have this conversation. If we wanted to find you on social media or check out your website, fill us in on all of the things where we can find you on the internet.
Perfect. Absolutely. So my website is www.trevortnewton, T for Thomas, the middle name, .com. I would love to reach out and support you. Then on social media, it's Mr. Trevor Teaches, or even just under my name of Trevor T. Newton. And that's on all the social media, the Meta, the TikTok. See me dancing out there. I love to post content for early childhood, content about families and parenting. That's really my jam. And really, what it comes down to is I love supporting people. I love being a teacher. I love helping other teachers. So, parents, if you're listening to this and you just need some support, a one-on-one conversation, or even your advocacy group, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Feel free to reach out. And then, if you're an early childhood program, a school program, an elementary program, and you're looking for advice or training on this topic here, special education, play within the classroom, big body play, and one of my favorite topics, teaming and leadership, reach out. I love to do trainings and keynotes and presentations because what we get the chance to do every day is unquestionably awesome. These children come in and we get the opportunity to teach them. We get to be teachers. We're living out our dreams right now. So let's support each other in doing this. And I'm here to support you.
I love it. And I love your passion for education. I think it's so powerful. Again, just with like the whole sustainability, I know like in education right now, we have staff shortages and just sometimes the overall community is we're exhausted and we are burnt out.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. Our job is so important that it just takes so much out of us. But I just love your passion for education and doing what you do. So thank you for doing what you do and speaking and teaching and just doing all of the things. I truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate you being here again for sharing your knowledge and expertise. And thank you so much for being here to learn more about not only communicating the IEP with the rest of the team, but in doing so collaboratively and effectively so that your students can succeed in the classroom. We will see you in the next training.